Okay, so I want to bounce MIDI to audio on Ableton. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to play some MIDI tracks on my standalone push that otherwise can't be natively used on my push. Like, for example, Superior Drummer. This plugin is a drum plugin for use for programming drums or use with a MIDI controller, etc. But unfortunately, you can't use this plugin directly on the standalone push. But that's okay, never fear, because we have options. So I have this cheesy little loop that I've made here. Nothing crazy here going on at all, nothing crazy. But so first step, right click on the track and freeze the track. Now this isn't, I'm not going to go too much into freezing, but essentially what freezing does is it makes kind of a sample that can be played back without having to utilize the plugin in real time. So that also cuts down on CPU load. I won't go too much into freezing, but it's the first step of bouncing to audio. And then now that it's frozen, you'll notice it turns blue. You know, certain things can't be changed once it's frozen because of the nature of freezing. So, you know, if you wanted to go and change anything, certain things, you can go back, just unfreeze the track. So now what we want to do, now that it's frozen, first off, I want to show you that this track, this clip here, is still indeed a MIDI track. You can see all my MIDI hits down here with their velocities. So once we hit flatten track, which by the way I find an interesting choice of words, that's kind of like a Photoshop thing if you've ever used Photoshop. If not, don't worry about it, but it's, you know, same kind of idea. But flatten, here we go. Okay, bam. You'll notice if you didn't have the clip open, you might wonder if it worked at all or if anything happened. But since we have the clip open, you notice that it immediately got turned into an audio track. So now that's something that my push standalone can play because it's not actually using the plugin on the push. It's just playing an audio track. So a little workaround that I figured out, sometimes you may not just want to convert all your clips here to audio. So I'm going to go ahead and undo the flatten. And then from here, where it's just frozen, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this track. So now that this is frozen, I'm going to mute this, which is, again, this is the original MIDI track. This is Superior Drummer, for those of you that are not aware of it. Let me unfreeze this real quick so you can see Superior Drummer. It looks like this. You know, can choose drums and all that stuff, program them, all those cool things. But so let's freeze that. Come on, come on, come on. And so now, why did I make a duplicate? I want the original track to stay the way it is, to stay you know, in MIDI form. And I'm just not going to use that track when I transfer it to my push. But with this second track, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that one, because that way I'll have an audio track, and then over here I still have my MIDI track. And obviously the advantage of MIDI is that you can go back and change things. Once it's an audio track, you know, there's not too much you can do as far as like changing the actual beat, you know. So now it's ready to be played on my push standalone. And so keep in mind, you can also do that for like this, for example. This is just a synth from Ableton that I have here. You can freeze that and flatten that as well if you want. You know, again, like the biggest reason you would ever freeze a track is to save CPU, like if your computer is slower. But anyway, hope that helps you guys. We bounced this track to MIDI, or excuse me, we bounced it from MIDI to audio, and so now I can play it on my push. So hope that helps. See you guys in the next one.